Welcome to Rising Stars, where Miriam Knight, publisher of New Consciousness Review, interviews exciting new voices in the world of progressive and transformational books, films, and ideas, who offer intriguing perspectives on life, the universe, and everything in between. Join us as we celebrate the conscious awakening and explore many expressions of consciousness in action.
Welcome everyone to New Consciousness Review, to the Rising Stars Show. I'm Miriam Knight, and today we have a slight departure in that I am interviewing Wes Burwell about a product, but also about a book that he hasn't written yet, but I am seriously and strenuously encouraging him to write. Now, Wes Burwell studied electronics before delving into energy medicine, which he approached from the viewpoint of electrical theory and physics. He found that they are intricately involved on a cellular level, and he undertook extensive studies and certifications in many different disciplines, including biofeedback, electroacupuncture, homeopathy, nutrition and detoxification, Ayurveda, and finally, most recently, in laser therapy and LED light therapy. Now, he has helped design and develop new and innovative light therapy products, and he's contributed to the creation of the Parker University course on light therapy. I mean, he really knows his stuff. I've heard him speak a number of times, and that's why I am so pleased that he could join us today. Welcome, Wes.
Hi, Miriam. Thank you.
Now, you've studied all of these therapeutic modalities, but you seem to have put the emphasis on light therapy in recent years. Why light therapy?
Through practice, I've just found it to be probably the most powerful thing out there from an energetic perspective in helping the body to recover relative to pain relief and any type of physical issue due to the fact that it directly creates a stimulatory effect and helps with nerve regeneration and boosting cell tissue function.
Now, this has been supported by FDA studies, and it's been extensively used in veterinary medicine, hasn't it?
Yes, very much so.
So we're not talking so much about an alternative therapy, but a proven therapy that we're starting to understand in what I would call quantum ways. That's what I so loved about your last talk, and that's what I hope we're going to be exploring and explaining today. So how, in your understanding, does light therapy actually work?
Well, it kind of works on two levels because it's directly affecting the energy of the body or the energy field of the body, which directly transcends down to the physical aspect. It's through the energetic body. That template is the primary matrix which holds the physical tissue in accordance. So whatever happens from the consciousness level, how people think, how people feel, directly affects your natural template, which of course is held together relatively by your DNA, being the transfer of the light. And so as you use light therapy, any of these, I call them almost like wrinkles in the aura, which create deviations to the physical tissue, you can directly give light therapy to those areas, because really disease is a deficiency of light on a cellular level, which is kind of reflective of the chi or life energy, being able to do and pull off the alchemy required for all the chemical combinations that need to occur to maintain health within the physical tissue.
I've actually heard of cancer therapies that shine light on, try to get light to the tumorous tissue, and that seems to be the way to kind of correct the deviations from normal. Lest people feel that this is getting a little woo-woo, I just want to point out that we eat light converted by plants and animals. That is the way we nourish ourselves. So this is far from far-fetched. And what you're talking about, Wes, if I understand correctly, is actually delivering the light directly to the cells without having to go through the digestion process.
Correct. When you digest your food, it's doing just that. It's breaking down on a molecular level so it can feed the cells. And through these chemical combinations being broke down within the food, it elicits certain wavelengths of light, different colors. And during those chemical reactions, the cells are actually metabolizing things as well, which gives off biophoton exchange between the cells, because your cells actually do communicate with pulses of light, each different type of cell having their own specific language per se, or way that they release this light as well as receive it.
So how do you think our thoughts actually affect the structure of the body?
Well, I've created pretty much a model of the energetic body based on light as well as optics and physics principles. And so pretty much the light that comes through from the auric structure coming through the different dimensions, your chakra points are almost like focal lenses, which are collecting this light. And the meridian system interconnects all of these on the next subtle level up. And of course, this is the distribution part of the energy field, which is then feeding the physical tissue to be able to provide movement and, to be dynamic and in constant ability to adapt. Whereas the outer part is the primary supplier of this light and life energy at the same time. So as we think, we actually create pretty much almost like a black hole would out in the universe, how it will actually attract and collect light and create an event horizon. So this belief or thought is what triggers this. And the more we hold on to this thought, it can collect more and more light as we accumulate more emotional energy concerning that issue. This thereby robs light directly from the aura, which would be destined to be collected by the chakras to maintain a healthy function as well as maintain your manifestation. So it's a direct enactment on the physical body when this occurs, how we think and how we feel. And this can be beneficial to us or non-beneficial, all depending on how we think and how we feel.
People tend to forget that. You think of positive affirmations, but all of our negative thoughts are just as powerful. So how does the physical body overcome the negativity in our aura? How does it, if we didn't have light therapy, how do we get better from an illness?
Well, in most cases, this is where supplementation, a lot of people will try to use different types of things of the earth to help, give back that quotient of light. But in most cases, you're dealing with the digestive system, which has become compromised. And so as soon as this is affected, the nervous system is the primary governor of the body. And I've always called it pretty much the nervous system is a reflection of the inception of your perception in the physical body. It directly enacts and changes nerve function, and this is thereby how the body compensates. And when the muscles contract, this is also going to delineate blood flow into and out of an area, as well as lymphatic drainage. So this is when now the area is very restricted. The cells slowly start to suffocate due to lack of oxygen and a buildup of carbon dioxide and waste products. So as this occurs, the body is forced to compensate due to whatever's going on, because it's a holistic organism. Anything you do to the body has to maintain a level of compensation factors based on the stress response and everything that's affecting it. So the body has a specific margin where it can actually embrace these things and it's able to adapt. But once you've reached pretty much your genetic limit of being able to compensate, this is when symptoms start to come forward, and an accumulation of symptoms pretty much puts you on the pathway to what we call disease.
So that's why young people think that they're immortal, because they haven't run out of whatever compensatory factors that they were born with.
Correct.
And then they pay the piper.
Yes, so to speak. When they're young, their constitution is, of course, high. Their body is also in a different energy state as they progress through your life. In Ayurvedic medicine, you start off in the kapha period, where the physical body is being given the greater quotient of energy. And when you hit a certain point around between 18 to 21, even up to 25 for some people, this is when it shifts into the pitta factor. This is where your body goes into a state of maintenance. And of course, the energy is high for you to be able to maintain as well as function with what you have. And then from there, you enter in the later years into the vata stage, where in essence, it's more the air ether component. So hopefully this is where you've definitely garnered some wisdom by this point, and are able to maintain the level of light required to keep the body healthy and functional. And the life energy kind of slowly prepares to back out of the system, and there's less to work with. But if the body has been not, beat up from all of the conscious thought and hardened beliefs that they're holding on to, the body really has no issue and is able to maintain itself.
So there is hope, because if you radiate the body with light, you can actually correct these deficiencies?
Correct. What you're doing is giving a higher quotient of light for the life energy to negotiate and assist it with pulling off the chemistry required to balance and allow the body to function.
Fascinating. So, Wes, I know that you're here. You're going to be giving a talk this weekend in Portland, Oregon. Where can people find out about that?
It'll be a free event we're having at the Grand Hotel at Bridgeport. The address is 7265 Southwest Hazel Fern Road in Tigard, Oregon.
I've actually posted that on the NCR Facebook page. So if you are, or go to the NCR website, ncreview.com, and you will see a link to it. And Wes will be doing a lot more of these talks around the country. So it is well worth attending if you have any kind of challenges that don't seem to be responding. We're going to get into the actual details of this technology in the next segment, but we have to take a break now. And we will be right back speaking with Wesley Burwell after these.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Have you been searching for a perspective beyond the mainstream? Check it out. Join your hosts, Yelito Pascual and Diana Gold Holland, on Share International Radio for thought-provoking views behind the news, Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio. You can also find us at shareontheairradio.org. This may be the message of hope you've been waiting for.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
This is Terry Van Horn, and I want to invite you to join me for my weekly radio show, Healing Light, on OMTimes Radio, every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Healing Light, we want to bring love, light, and blessings into your world. You can find out more about us at www.healinglightonline.com. Blessings.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
And we are back speaking with Wesley Burwell about in-light therapies. And Wesley, you started studying or working with laser lights and then moved on to working with LEDs. Tell us about what you were accomplishing with one and why you have switched to the LED system.
Well, I had a great practice. Core of my practice was using laser therapy. And then I actually was pretty much on the road teaching it, laser acupuncture, as well as using on trigger points, fascia release points, things such as that. But it takes a lot of understanding of the meridian system of the body, knowing where the apertures of entry are to donate the light, and also understanding other aspects which, per se, they don't teach you in acupuncture. So there was a lot of training, a lot of learning which was required to be able to be effective at that. One of the things that I found in using laser was that probably about 85% of the population to 80% would respond wonderfully to laser as long as you hit all the correct points for the proper amount of time, dosage, all these different parameters. But what I saw with some of the population was they just would not respond. Whether you did it all correct or not, you could pretty much light them up so they glowed in the dark, but they still would not get any type of pain reduction or anything else. And I found a direct correlation with some of these people being very much, how do I put it, very strong-willed or strong-minded. And so this really forced me to take a look at research and other pieces to find out why people had this ability to pretty much to shut down the benefits that light was providing. Well, it really showed me that through the coherence of laser, which means the light is pretty much structured and ordered, for the most part, people are very accepting of that. That's your 80% of people. But the people with strong wills were actually able to polarize against this light, which means they could actually shut down the response just from their consciousness alone. And so this explained to me how, in essence, their cells were able to close the windows and not receive the light, and thereby not taking direct action within the cellular matrix, but were able to pass on the light. When I started using LEDs, interestingly enough, that whole factor disappeared due to the fact that it's incoherent light, which means if you kind of compare the two with a quick analogy, it's almost like when you use laser light, it's like turning your garden hose to jet, where it's a strong, powerful stream, and watering your flowers. Well, of course, you're going to water them, and it may knock them down, but they stand back up, but of course, being nourished by the water. Whereas with LEDs, it's almost like turning your hose onto, a shower or mist, where there's no offense directly to the body, and it's being given so that the body can actually take the light and produce its own coherence, because the auric structure in the light that's provided to manifest this is coherent light, but the body has its own coherence. So when you use a laser device per se, it forces coherence on the system, and if it's not able to accept it, then of course the body actually has to break that coherence down and then apply it to self. Whereas LEDs I have not seen in practice that this being the case. That was really my governing factor to switch to LEDs. I brought in a lot of the people who did not respond to laser when I first started using the device and offered a free session. And out of the 86 people that I had 49 show up. 26 of those people, when I put the lights on, just didn't do anything special with the light, working acupuncture, anything else like that. Just show me where it hurts, and I wrapped it up. And in 20 minutes, I saw 26 of those people actually had 100% pain reduction, and the rest of the group experienced anywhere from 30 to 90, which is far greater than the results that I had with them originally. So this really forced me to dig into the research. Why did this happen? And of course, I found out about, the polarization principle, but also the fact that when you use a large surface area of lights, and it really has little to do with the power aspect, but the larger the surface area relative to the number of light sources, this generates a much higher quotient, in fact, an exponential quotient of nitric oxide release. And of course, this is very important when it comes to creating vasodilation, angiogenesis, and a whole host of other benefits which directly lead and are involved in pain reduction.
Can you explain for our listeners what angiogenesis is?
Angiogenesis is the promotion of new blood vessels sprouting off your primary arteries or the larger blood vessels, the vein structures, what have you. So as we age, a lot of our smaller capillaries can actually close off and or become blocked. And of course, we can see this on our skin as our skin kind of ages, gracefully or even due to stress and at an accelerated rate. So when you use the lights, you're able to either open that circulation back up, restore the blood supply in or out, or it will actually stimulate through the nitric oxide to rebuild this peripheral circulation and, of course, supply that area, giving a better perfusion.
How fascinating. Does it also help regenerate nerves that might be damaged?
Oh, this is one of the reasons why I got into light therapy in the first place, because primarily I used to have a practice using primarily biofeedback. And my sister-in-law, she had gone through a cancer surgery, and the biofeedback works more on a microcurrent principle. So I was not able to stimulate the nerve function. During her operation, they removed the tumor, but they actually hit the phrenic nerve, and she wasn't able to breathe on one side. So she only had about 7 to 10% lung function. So I was really scrambling to find something that would help to reactivate and stimulate these nerves. And because the biofeedback and microcurrent therapy was not getting me where I needed to go with her. So I incorporated light because all the the research was showing that light therapy had the ability to regenerate and stimulate new nerve growth and function. And so I started working on her, and in 1 week, she went from 7 to 10% lung function up to 35% and continued to progress over the next 3 months, back up to 85, 90% function.
That's astonishing. What other types of injury or disease have you found it particularly helpful for?
It's probably easier to tell you what it won't work on than what it will, because it's so far-ranging. Because to me, the body is light and sound, and of course, if deficiency or disease or any type of issue is apparent, then you're dealing with a deficiency of light, and we're trusting the innate wisdom of the body will take that light and apply it as needed, and work around depending on what the consciousness is holding on. But even then, I don't know anyone who really doesn't want to get better per se on a subconscious level. So I've seen it work wonders with people who have had strokes, traumatic brain injury, PTSD, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, anything neurologically based. I always see a difference, but I never know where it's going to stop for that person. Some people, it can have a complete absolution of the condition. Other people, it will just, get them to a certain space, and then that's where it stops. And we really never know, because it's completely up to the innate wisdom of the body to negotiate that directly.
That's a tricky thing to negotiate, isn't it? Because people have all kinds of sometimes secondary gains or karmic influences or whatever they're working through that will keep them from healing.
I totally believe that. And I've seen it over and over again. You can have 5 people with the same type of condition, and each one will respond differently. And when you look at the emotional caricature of those people, or even their archetype, you will see kind of why some people will heal rapidly, other people will not. And of course, I always want to honor whatever it is that they bring to the plate, and support them at whatever level I can. But at the same time, honoring the fact of wherever they feel they need to stop is where they will.
Mm. So you also did intensive studies in nutrition and detoxification. Do you usually recommend those interventions alongside the light therapy, or is the light therapy enough?
I sometimes will work with somebody to adjust some of their lifestyles / nutritional aspects. I do believe in the power of supplementation, but one of the first things I always try to go and correct is the neurological imbalance, because it is the primary controller of where the cell tissue or the body is going to be contracted. Wherever it's contracted, because we have a sympathetic dominance relative to the nervous system, these become kind of like the brownout zones where the light is now deficient. And what's happening is wherever that contraction is occurring, this is where, things of the earth, such as your food, supplementation, what have you, will actually start to pile up in the area. And so at some point, supplementation will actually be, in essence, rejected by the body. And I've seen this over and over again. Many people would come to me and I would do biofeedback screening with them, and I would find that most of the nutritional stuff they were taking was part of what was causing them their issues. So I would reduce that, and then we would start from ground zero, allow the body to clean that out, detoxify it, and then we could slowly introduce some of this nutrition going forward and or homeopathy to help balance things out.
What do you mean by contraction?
When the sympathetic nervous system is on, it's designed for the body to take action. So in the case of when we're stressed, we'll automatically, the muscles in the jaw will begin to fire. Whether you clench or not is besides the point. And then from there, we've probably all experienced where the shoulders will become tight, the head comes forward. And this ends up being a stuck-on condition with a lot of people because they go from one stressor to the next and never really give themselves a break. And on top of that, most of the population, which they probably don't even know about, have a sympathetic contraction relative to one side of their body due to the dental.
Right. You talk a lot about proprioception. What is the influence of the misalignment of the jaw or the clenching of the jaw?
Well, the brain prioritizes information that it receives inside the mouth through tactile sensation. So as one opens or closes their mouth, one side at the back and the back molars, they will touch first on one side and then the other. So when this occurs, the brain picks that up as the high point, and as the teeth on the other side touch, then it becomes the low point. So the brain picks this up to balance the body specifically to that input.
We're going to have to pick this up after the break because we are going to break, and we're speaking with Wesley Burwell about in-light therapies and all kinds of energy medicine. So stay with us.
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Are you ready to shift your energy, consciousness, and limiting beliefs? Join me, Shefali Burns, every Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern on Shifting with Shefali here on OMTimes Radio. Shift the blocks, limitations, and negative energies that have kept you from experiencing a life filled with joy, peace, love, abundance, and happiness. Are you ready to shift with Shefali? Are you ready to shine your brilliance?
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Simone Milasas would like you to know that business can be fun, which is why she wrote the book, Joy of Business. What if you could have the joy of business rather than the stress and struggle? Most of the time, the only thing stopping you from a thriving business is you. In the Joy of Business book, Simone gives you access consciousness tools and pragmatic ways to get out of your own way and to create the business, life, and living you know is possible and beyond what this reality says is achievable. Business is joy. It's creation. It's generative. It can be the adventure of living. You can purchase your copy of the book through Amazon or Joy of Business website, www.accessjoyofbusiness.com.
Eros Evolution is where sexuality and spirituality meets. Join me, clinical sexologist Martha Tara Lee, on Eros Evolution on Thursdays, 4 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
With Wes Burwell about light therapy. Wes, you actually, because of your background and your extensive knowledge of the area, have been quite active in contributing to the development of the technology that you're using. Can you explain what the system kind of looks like, how it works, and how it's applied?
Sure. There's different types of controllers. They have a 2-port, a 3-port, and a 6-port. And this just means you can plug up to 6 pads directly into the controller unit. What the controller unit does is it's able to, it has different settings on it where you can turn on different pulse rates that the lights will actually be turned on and off towards the tissue. And what we're trying to do is mimic the cellular communication and donate the light directly to the tissue. So using pulse light in a lot of your research has shown that it's much more beneficial and the body embraces it with less issue. So there's many different types of pads that you can use, and they're flexible neoprene pads with the LEDs placed in them in different ways. So just by using these, they're very flexible. You can pretty much attach it around an elbow, a knee, or directly just flat on the body. And it'll run for approximately a 20-minute session, and then it shuts off by default. So that way you're not overdriving or per se dosing an area while you're doing this. Just makes it a whole lot easier for the user.
So you talked about the pulsing of the light. What are the LEDs themselves comprised of? What kind of wavelengths?
Primarily they use near-infrared, 880 nanometers, as well as red LEDs, which are 640 nanometers, and blue LEDs, which are 430. Now, each of those respectively will penetrate the body to a certain level, because this is kind of a requirement for photochemistry to work, and that's really what light therapy is. It's a branch of science known as photochemistry. So we're donating, instead of, like in a laboratory, you're using a Bunsen burner to donate energy in the form of heat to a solution to cause a chemical reaction. We're doing this at a much, much lower energy level, just by donating photons specifically. And different cell groups will actually absorb the different wavelengths, which also means colors, at different levels, as well as different concentrations. So the near-infrared penetrates approximately up to 4 inches deep, and it's collected by your denser tissues such as cartilage, ligaments, bones, things like that, as well as it's addressing all the tissues in between and helping to release the nitric oxide from the blood, endothelium, things such as that. Now, the red penetrates approximately 8 to 10 millimeters, which is approximately about an inch, helping with the soft tissue, the surface layers, whereas the blue is highly absorbed on the first 3 to 4 millimeters. So it doesn't go very deep, but it's pretty much picked up and creates action in all 3 levels when you're using the 3 different colors.
So the blue is more energetic. I recall that you were talking about developing a purple pad. What would that do that the others wouldn't?
I've used violet light in the past and still continue to use it. And I've seen some miraculous changes relative to things such as birthmarks, which would be considered genetic damage. So I've actually seen the reversal of those and or just a lessening of the effects that the person is experiencing with these. So antibacterial properties, it helps to, pretty much can kill certain bacteria just by short exposure time. Things such as MRSA, blue light can also directly affect that, whereas red light really won't do anything to it. So the different colors have their own specific properties in relation to how the body absorbs it, but also where the target zones are specifically.
It reminds me of the work of Royal Raymond Rife, who was developing whose machine, the Rife machine, was able to be tuned to different frequencies for different pathogens. So that was a much finer type of adjustment, whereas yours is kind of a broader spectrum.
Yes, it's, as I mentioned, it's very much wavelength dependent, not so much in relation to the frequency, whereas Rife was more of finding the exact frequency, which would create, in essence, mechanical resonance to fracture or burst the membrane of the organism, and thereby causing it, of course, to die. Whereas the light creates more of a denaturation of the actual proteins and also the respiration specifically of the pathogen, and thereby, stopping it from being able to either reproduce and or just causing straight up death within the cell.
So what we've been talking about is more or less the physiological mechanism of action. But as you said at the beginning, much of the contraction, much of the deficit of energy is caused by our thoughts, our consciousness. So is it possible for the light to directly affect the psychological processes?
Yes, and what I've seen, as I mentioned, due to the fact of thoughts, beliefs that are being held onto in the aura, deprive the cell tissue, which would normally receive that quotient of light. So what we're doing is interceding with the light and directly feeding that tissue the light that it needs to reenact and kickstart the chemistry. We're kind of clearing the way for the life energy to step back in and reseat itself. And so as someone experiences this, the consciousness always has to allow. And of course, just by allowing, to have the pads put on the area, they're already giving permission for that to take place. So it acts almost as a biofeedback aspect. The cell tissue starts to relax, getting better blood flow, more movement through the area. And this reverberates obviously back to the consciousness. And of course, the consciousness handshakes in an aspect, like an example would be, well, that feels good. It feels so much better. The pain's gone. And so in doing so, this directly affects how the person thinks and feels about it. And they can actually dissolve and reduce that emotional energy out in the actual auric field. So now you don't have such a large deficiency of light. And what'll happen is it'll help bring the person back to the original point or idea, which started the whole ball rolling on the emotional accumulation in the first place. So
will it actually raise them to a different level of consciousness?
Well, there's no guarantee of that because, of course, that is completely controlled by the individual. But what it will do, it'll take the emotional encumbrance, per se, off of an issue that they've been dealing with and or struggling with. I've used the example before where, say if when I was a child, one of my parents called me stupid. So then I will hold on to this for a long period of time. And constantly my mind and heart will be arguing because my heart will always tell me the truth, saying, you're not stupid. But my mind will find every excuse to convict me due to the fact that my parents are my first version of divine. They feed me, they look after me, they take care of me. So they're pretty much equated with God. So sooner or later you convict yourself and then you continue through your lifeline. Every time, being called stupid, it brings this emotional charge back to you. You keep re-experiencing it from your past, but it accumulates in your present. And so this is how you accumulate this excess emotional energy. So when you use light therapy, and I've seen this over and over with clients, the things that used to trigger them or cause them some form of suffering, it tremendously reduces it so that they can actually allow that heart-mind communication to occur where finally the heart can speak through and the brain accepts it and realizes. Because even people who have done a lot of emotional work, I find that they may have resolved the issue, but on a residual aspect, the physical tissue, not enough willpower is being given back to the body for it to be enacted and allow the life energy to come back in and shift and change the physical. And it's interesting because the people who have done a lot of that emotional work, those people seem to experience, rapid transitions, like what we would call almost like a miracle healing sort of thing, where, putting it on a knee one time, you can get rid of an issue that's 20 to 30 years old that's been nagging them throughout their life every time the weather changes. So I've seen in one session how this is just cleared out. And it's very integral to that whole process that I was talking about.
How fascinating, because my husband, who's a hypnotherapist, deals with similar issues through the root of consciousness. And what you're doing is removing the residue of tension and anxiety at the cellular level so that it can evaporate at the consciousness level. It's kind of coming at it from the other side.
Yes, very much so.
How fascinating.
Now, if you to do both together, then it's pretty amazing how it can change things.
Yeah. So, what do you think is the future of light therapy? Where is it going from here? Is there a development area that you would like to see happen?
Just in the last few years, I've been seeing a large incidence of, out in the field where light is being utilized, working on things such as traumatic brain injury, PTSD, depression symptoms, things like that. And with the recent discovery that the brain actually has a lymphatic system, which I've always held to be true in the first place, otherwise the actions wouldn't occur, was somebody having a stroke and then being able to completely recover and back to walking and feeling and everything else. So you have to be able to drain an area specifically to get rid of those compounded toxicities and or even food collected in the tissues so that regeneration can start. And so I'm seeing a lot of work being done primarily with brain health, also depression, things such as that. And a lot of the studies are being done now at this period in time with these things. And of course, they really don't have any way to kind of support and help these people other than giving them medications, which pretty much nullifies, the body's response to the consciousness, saying, it's shutting down the body's outcry to fix the problem, because there's really nothing they can do relative to satisfying and addressing the specific cause. Some of the preliminary stuff that I've seen is pretty tremendous, like helping with the biochemical aspects directly within the brain. The light can pass through transcranially and directly create angiogenesis in the brain, ATP production. People are able to think clear, better cognitive function, memory capacity. Their behavior changes. They don't have the anger outbursts. And I've seen this with children with ADD, ADHD, even autism. Tremendous changes. And then people with all the other types of neurological problems.
That's pretty darn impressive. Well, we're going to take our last break, and then we will be back speaking with Wesley Burwell. Stay tuned.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
The truth is, you can't change the world if you're broke. I know, I tried. Isn't it time you turned your life's calling into a profitable, freedom-based business? I'm Michelle Barr. Join me every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern for Sacred Success.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. The number one reason girls drop out of school in sub-Saharan Africa is lack of access to feminine hygiene products. The Pads for Schoolgirls Project, an outreach of Humanity Healing International, is changing this paradigm by setting up sewing programs at schools, teaching girls a vocational skill, while producing the reusable pads that help keep them attending classes. The girls pay it forward by making and giving pad kits to other girls in need. To learn more, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Wesley Burwell, and I'm Miriam Knight. And just before the break, we were talking about the sort of physical mechanism of action. Now, I know, Wes, that you started out as a scientist, as an engineer, looking at the hard facts. And at some stage, you seem to have opened the door to a more spiritual component of your understanding. I'm kind of wondering, we're always interested in that interface between science and consciousness. Where are you on that spectrum, and where do you see it going?
Well, I can only speak from my own personal experience in relation to that. When my sister-in-law developed cancer, I was working in industry at the time, and when my brother told me what was what she had been diagnosed with, I was already, leading a religious, spiritual life, what have you. But so from that conversation, I became very angry and frustrated because I had looked at, and seen many people who had fallen to cancer, and I just was heartfelt this was not going to happen, and there had to be some way we could fix it. So I had a bit of an angry conversation with God and said, you're divine. There isn't anything you can't do. So I'm calling you on your word, and I'm saying, it says, ask and you shall receive. So I'm asking, and I'm willing to receive and let go of whatever's in the way for this information to come in. So if you can show me how this can be fixed. And so 3 nights later, I was taken in a amazing lucid dream where I was put into a classroom and educated on, the principles of biofeedback and also a device. So this is really where everything started for me. And I found out the next day that these devices actually, were a reality. And so this is when I really took a left turn into the whole field and began exploring all different types of energy devices, and started off with the biofeedback, and it led me to light. And I've been just going forward ever since. It's been an interesting relationship because after that, I became very sick personally. I probably lost about 30 pounds, and I equate it to my spirit was pretty much emptying me out so I could be filled again. And after that experience, it was almost like I was getting constant downloads on all these different things, including the construct of the light body, how it works, how it functions, and having no background on any of this stuff. So it was quite extraordinary. And now it's I can intuitively just go within, pray, meditate, and ask, and any information that I kind of need, it just kind of gets dropped, downloaded to me. Sometimes in process, sometimes the next day. I never know when, but it's been a very interesting life since that experience, to say the least.
I'll bet. I wanted to ask you earlier, and I'll ask you now, the sun is our friend or not our friend?
Well, let's face it, without the sun, there would be no life on Earth. So I would definitely classify it as a friend. But a little bit of too much company, even from a friend, can be sometimes a little offensive. So it's always about finding balance. We definitely need to have sunlight for the earth to grow, to prosper. But this is also why the divine set the planet up so that we have a period of daylight to have a rest from the sun.
And would the sun also be beneficial? Does it mimic the action, or does the light therapy system mimic the action of the sun? How is it different?
Well, very much so. And interestingly enough, with the infrared wavelength that is used within the device, this is actually within that bandwidth. It is actually pretty much blocked in the atmosphere, so that we don't really get the full capacity of that wavelength for our bodies. So, and our atmosphere was obviously different, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And then they figured this is how people were able to live, 600 years old due to our atmospheric conditions being different. Well, with the atmosphere we have today, some of these beneficial wavelengths are actually being blocked, be it by pollution or just earth changes. So this is one of the things that I've seen how it can help give to the body on a basis that our sun just can't. Now, of course, the blue and red we definitely get from the sun, but it's not in a pulse state. It's in a constant, continuous state, which can range in amplitude or power level as the sun has, sunbursts, what have you, solar flares.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know that the body uses the sun to produce things like vitamin D, and that's a photochemical process initiated by the sun. So there's no reason to believe that it would not respond to the LED therapy.
Correct. With the sun provides us many different beneficial wavelengths, even with UV, which of course is considered ionizing radiation. Now, of course, we don't use any UV or ionizing radiation, but by damaging with UV, B, and C, it can cause mild damage to the surface of the skin. But this also helps to assist the body to, cash out some of these cells and help to regenerate. And as you mentioned with the whole vitamin D aspect, its production is directly from the body trying to protect itself from the sun, but setting it up to be able to absorb it so it doesn't create further damage. And part of that process, because the body's very efficient, it utilizes that to convert into vitamin D.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So where are you taking it from here, Wes?
Well, I've been pretty much given many different opportunities working with light. I've got a project that I'm very excited about. I've been invited to utilize light therapy, in essence, or usage of light to help stimulate and grow stem cells in a lab. But we're also talking about pre and post injection of these stem cells. We're going to increase the growth rate within the lab itself, but also guaranteeing the effectiveness when people get these stem cell injections going forward. Because a lot of cases, they can be anywhere from 60 to 70% effective, and it's a very costly treatment. But whereas when incorporating light therapy with it, the effectiveness goes up to 85, 90%. So we can kind of almost create more of an insurance relative to the results. But what I find interesting is that's one of the core components that light therapy has already proven itself and is able to stimulate the body's own stem cells without need for injection. But in the case of if there's too much degeneration, well, then of course it's definitely warranted.
Is this something that you can use on pregnant people?
Yes, you can. Just not directly over the area where the fetus is actually developing.
Mm-hmm.
With my wife, I used light therapy, to help resolve swelling in her feet, sore ankles, some, lower back issues, but just using a low intensity and just small amount of dosage. But for the most part, if people have any issues with it, they can just completely avoid it and work everywhere else on the whole body, except for where the fetus is developing.
It would be interesting. You were talking about stimulating stem cells. It would be interesting to know if it could help, like with in vitro fertilization, or they're talking about growing like ears and tissues on scaffolding for implanting back into humans. If it would have an effect on the growth of these tissues.
Actually, there's already research articles you can find on PubMed that are supporting exactly what you're talking about.
Ooh, cool.
Yep.
Great. So do you have like a website where people could find out more about this, or where would you suggest people inform themselves?
My website currently is under construction. I'm putting together for it to be a resource site where people will be able to access studies, look at some of the latest research on how light's being used, and be able to do their own research, because I'm very much on that whole aspect. There's well over 4,000 research articles on light therapy at present, and the numbers continue to grow. I also want to work directly with people to be able to give presentations on this new technology and research in the future. So the website I'm developing, it's just www.wesleyburwell.com. And this is going to be the future, like I said, resource site for people who want to learn more about light, but also people who decide that they want to become a practitioner, or even just for home use, where there'll be protocols that they can download and get directions on how to properly use it to get results and benefits.
In the meantime, what would they put in as a search term, in Google, to find out about it?
One of the primary places you can access research articles it's PubMed.com. It's just PubMed, which is short form for published medical articles. Mm-hmm. You can, once you get onto the site, then you can put in the search bar, put in LLLT, which just stands for low level light therapy, and then just enter that into the search bar, hit enter, and all of the studies will come up. If you want to further refine your search, you can put LLLT space and then whatever condition, disease, issue, what have you, you can put in beside it, and it'll pull up any light related articles on those conditions. And one of the things I usually tell people as well, you may find that certain conditions, there's no studies specific on it, but with using an LED system, we know for a fact that this generates a large amount of nitric oxide. So I always tell people, put in nitric oxide space and then whatever type of condition, and you can see the correlation on whether light therapy would be able to support on some level this type of condition due to the
fact. And this is nitric, not nitrous oxide.
Correct.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show, unfortunately, but it's been a delight having you with us, Wes. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Wesley Burwell, Burwell, and it's Light Wellness Systems. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you'll visit my website, ncreview.com, for lots more books, films, and fascinating interviews. Be well, everyone, and join us next week. Lots of love. Bye for now.